career, and he's willing to step aside from it. And I'm not too sure if his quotes earlier in the year about wanting to be a farmer will end up transpiring for him whenever he retires, but he'll be missed if he's not on the grid here next year, because he is a big name, he is a big character, and we've seen some great performances from him on a superbike as well. We've obviously seen the inconsistencies, but you also know that on his day he's able to do an awful lot of damage.
Alex Lowes was our last pole sitter here at Magny-Cours by 3/4 of a second in wet conditions a year ago. It was only his second career pole. And this is a venue that does tend to throw up a few surprises. Eugene Laverty secured his 4th and last career pole here in 2020. Garrett Gerloff secured his only pole to date here in 2023. But it is Jonathan Rea who holds the record with 6 ahead of Tom Sykes on 4. Only one Ducati rider has ever been on pole here. That was James Toseland in 2023. And Toprak Razgatlioglu has never yet managed to at the French round.
Yeah, really important here to be able to see that for Jonathan Rea on the number 65 machine, he's out there behind both of the Lowes bikes as well, because we saw this at Donington. He went behind Sam and Alex in those sessions, qualified on the second row of the grid. We know the importance of Superpole for all riders in the field, but for Jonathan Rea in particular, he needs to be able to qualify far up the field. If he's got the right draft partner, it works out quite well.
Mentioned the 4 riders who didn't complete the Hungarian round weekend, and unfortunately Iker Lecuona is still unfit to return after the summer break with fractures to his left arm requiring surgery, and he hasn't yet recovered. Good news for Lecuona though, that his future's been secured. He'll be on the factory Ducati for 2025, and in the meanwhile it's Sergio Garcia who comes in to replace him this weekend. Runner-up of course in the 2022 Moto3 World Championship, last year's Moto2 World number 4, and still only 22 years of age, so a bright future ahead of him.
Yeah, and for Sergio, he was quite close to signing for HRC for next year in the Superbike class before confirming he was going to be a Gresini Moto2 rider. He's a talented rider. Last year in the middle of the summer he was the form rider in Moto2, and ultimately whenever his chances of being a MotoGP rider didn't come off for him, his season kind of unraveled a little bit, but there's a lot of speed there. Honda are very excited to have him on the bike here this weekend. He's done the Aragon test, and he could well be on the bike for another couple of rounds when we're waiting for Iker to get himself back.
Toprak Razgatlioglu underway with his first flying lap in this Superpole session, and certainly starts it as the favourite, coming in with back-to-back poles for the first time in 2025. Took top spot at Donington Park by only 1/10 of a second. It was a much more commanding margin of a half second in Superpole last time out before the summer break at Balaton Park. Of course, Razgatlioglu managed 4 in a row before his injury here last season. And he's trying to string another here as he makes his way through the final sector where he had that crash a year ago.
Yeah, you can see for Toprak, big moment there, a big bobble on the run down in towards the bottom of the hill into the right-hander. We'll see what his lap time is when he comes across the line. Michael van der Mark behind them on track on a good lap as well. But Toprak, the fastest time we've had from him so far this weekend, at 35.4, and comes across line a little bit slower than that from the start, but decent banker lap considering that big moment down into the bottom of the hill. And
a great lap for Michael van der Mark, only 1/10 of a second away from Toprak Razgatlioglu's first flying effort that in itself is only 2/10 of a second short of the fastest time we've had this weekend so far for the lap record for Nicolo Bulliger. Axel Bassani also going well at this stage on his lap as he makes his way through the final sector.
The problem for Bassani is he's that little bit further back on track. He probably had to come through the yellow flags for Locatelli's crash, and we'll wait and see what the situation is for those riders. It was a turn 3 for Locatelli. It's a big gravel trap for the riders, for the marshals to have to get to the bike, and maybe it was a bit of a delay to get that bike cleared off. This is the first chance we've had to see Locke, and they're just holding his hand a little bit there as well, so hopefully Locke's okay after that one.
So our first flying laps coming in with Toprak Razgatlioglu leading the way, a 1 minute 35.662 ahead of van der Mark and Bassani. We're now going to see what happened for Andrea Locatelli, and this is a high-speed area of the circuit. And Locatelli going down, and the bike, well, you would assume went barrelling off as well.
Yeah, and that's a section of track we can see Bautista just coming through it now. You can see how fast it is through here as well. For a lot of riders, it's actually a big slide through turn 1, and it puts them offline through turn 2 and up towards turn 3, and that's what caused the problem. Garrett Gerloff's gone off at the same place as well. That looks like it's down at turn 3 as well. So that's 2 crashes in the first 5 minutes at that section of the racetrack.
So 10 minutes still to go in Superpole. It's Razgatlioglu who leads from Van der Mark and Bassani. Provisional second row of the grid, Dominic Egerton. Great start to this session for him, as well as Remy Gardner and Xavi Vierge. Third row, Sofoglu, Vickers and Rinaldi. As things stand, only 14 riders have set lap times thus far. But Sam Lowe's and Alex Lowe's making their way around the circuit together, and Alex on a great lap at the moment. Yeah,
it's actually less riders than that now, because riders are losing those fastest lap times for yellow flag infringements, and certainly for a lot of riders they're being impacted by that. Xavi Vierge coming across the line there. Vierge 6th fastest at the moment, improves his lap time, doesn't improve his position, but he's been up inside the top 10 all the way through this weekend as well. He had a small crash yesterday at the start of free practice 2, but overall it's been a really good start to the weekend.
Sam and Alex Lowe's. Alex almost tripping over his brother as they make their way off the final turn, so Sam moves P3, but it's provisional pole for Alex Lowe's, a 1 minute 35.446, and as I said, he did a great job in free practice 3 to get his time down, and he takes the lead by a 0.2 of a second margin here in the first stint of Superpole.
A couple of hundredths of a second off Bulaga's fastest lap time of the weekend so far in the new lap record, so that is impressive there from Lowe's. We know how strong he can be in a Superpole session. You can see Jonathan Ray there going with him as well. Ray 7th fastest, and decent banker laps being put in here from the likes of Ray right at the start of the session.
Yeah, some big names though still to come. Nicolo Bulaga's down in 17th position at the moment. Alvaro Bautista's headed back into the pits. He's given up on this first stint. Locatelli obviously crashed out, so he's down the order.
I had a quick chat with Parariba just walking up through the paddock, crew chief to Alex Lowe's, and just a couple of minutes before coming on air, he was still really relaxed ahead of the Superpole session, and said that they were confident. They know that the bike's working well. Lowe's been able to prove that here in the first stint.
We pick up Nicolo Bulaga now on for his flying lap, as I said, well down the order at present. Remember, Toprak Razgatlioglu, your championship leader, currently sits in second place. There will still be a second stint later on in this session. The likes of Bautista will need to capitalise on that, but it's Nicolo Bulaga. We ride on board with him. 4th on the grid last time out at the Hungarian round, remember, putting an end to his run of 8 consecutive front row starts. The only time this season, only the 4th time in his 20 World SBK appearances that he's qualified out of the top 3. Nicolo Bulaga's been an average 2nd on the grid this season. 3 poles, the latest in Misano. 5 times this season, he and Razgatlioglu have finished 1 and 2 in Superpole, and we could be in for another head-to-head here. Bulaga making his way through the final sector. That's Danilo Petrucci, who's just come across the line for a new personal best that puts him into P8.
Yeah, so many of these riders having to continue on to do another lap because we've lost those couple of laps with yellow flag infringement. So the likes of Yari Montala still hasn't finished a lap time. Bulaga hasn't put in anything representative until he comes through the final couple of corners. Could be the fastest lap of the weekend though.
Nicolo Bulaga then, already 7 times a pole sitter in World SBK, goes provisional pole and bests his own lap record, a 1 minute 35.357. Less than a 1/10 of a second faster than Alex Lowe's. Relegates him into P2, and Toprak Razgatlioglu down to 3rd. Also a good lap there going in from Andrea Iannone. That puts him up into 8th place, and Taz McKenzie up into 12th. So it's Bulaga, Alex Lowe's and Toprak Razgatlioglu on the front row of the grid as things stand.
Yeah, and just for the performance of Bimoto for Lowe's, good to see Axel Bassani up there in the 2nd row of the grid. Good effort from him on his first stint. But now that we move in towards the second half of this session, as Toprak leaves the pits with Michael van der Mark behind him, this is when we'll really see what Toprak can do. He had a big bobble on the entry down in towards turn 15 on his fastest lap.
Yeah, Toprak Razgatlioglu with some work to do, currently in 3rd position as he chases his first Manicourt pole here. Well, it must be said he won from 16th on the grid here in 2019, so perhaps his starting position isn't quite too vital. Of course, Razgatlioglu did manage to tie Jonathan Ray's pole position time back in 2022. That is the only time that's ever happened in World SBK. And we've got another close session as things stand here, with less than a 1/10 of a second between Bulaga and Lowe's. And we know Razgatlioglu is capable of being in and around that mark as well. We've seen it through free practice.
Yeah, really important from those opening laps that the likes of Van der Mark got that good lap time in. 2nd row of the grid right now for Van der Mark on the BMW, and he's going to have the chance behind Toprak once again to be able to try and go with him. But the BMW is working well. Toprak, with that mistake, we didn't get to see exactly what he's capable of, but he set the pace in sector 2, and his final sector, he gave up 3/10 of a second compared to Bulaga, so he'll expect that he's going to be able to match that pace now on his first flying lap of this stint.
As you can see on your screen, Toprak Razgatlioglu up 4 poles to 3 against Nicolo Bulaga this season. Bulaga looking to make it 4 apiece as he currently leads the way on a 1 minute 35.357 at the end of the first stint, ahead of Alex Lowe's and Toprak Razgatlioglu. Michael van der Mark loves this place, Manicourt. currently sits in 4th position. This is Alvaro Bautista. Now, Bautista's one of 4 riders not to have set a lap as yet. Obviously, we saw what happened to Andrea Locatelli and then Garrett Gerloff with their crashes at turn 3. Jari Montella is the other rider not yet to have set a lap time.
Just for Bautista as well, he had technical problems this morning, lost out running in the warm-up session as well.
Toprak Razgatlioglu on to start his flying lap. Alvaro Bautista, some 15 seconds up the road from him, will be the first rider to set a flying lap in this second stint.
Yeah, and you can see at the back of this group, looks like Toprak's just sat up now as well on this lap, so we'll see what the reason for that is. Bulica's just left the pits in front of him, and that's why Toprak's shaking his head. But Sergio Garcia behind the BMW riders, and he was in prime position there to be able to spring a bit of a surprise.
Alvaro Bautista, we pick up here, 4th in the championship, but an average P8 on the grid. Superpole has been a real weakness for Bautista. He's only had 1 front row start in 20 rounds this season and last, and Manicourt is the scene of some of his worst Superpole results. He was 14th in 2019, the only time he qualified out of the top 10 in what was his first World SBK season, 17th in 2020 with Honda and again last year. But in his 2 title-winning seasons, he was 4th on the grid 2022, 2nd in 2023. So he can get around this place, but only when he's really at one with the bike, and that hasn't been the case this year so far.
Yeah, the changes to the bike for this year have really hurt him. It's very clear for all the success that he's had. You can see there again, just losing the rear end on the way into turn 15. He runs in wide. You lose a lot of time because you're then pushed offline for the next part of the corner as well. So ended up losing 0.8 of a second there just with that one mistake down in towards turn 15.
First flying lap of the session for Alvaro Bautista comes in, and it's only 14th place for him, a 1.3 seconds from your current leader, Nicolo Bulliga. Xavi Vierge at the halfway mark, just 1 place ahead of Bautista at the moment, but he's in line for a big improvement. He's only 0.2 of a second down on top spot, so a chance for him to make major progress. Likewise, Remy Gardner only 0.2 down after the second sector. He's behind Vierge on track. And Jari Montella just completing his installation lap and looking to make progress. Obviously hasn't yet set a lap time, same as Bautista before him, who has now moved up into 14th place. We catch up now with Xavi Vierge. And Vierge, who was 6th on the grid here at the 2024 French round. It was his best Superpole result of last season, went on to be his best scoring round of the year as well. Sam Lowes crosses the line, it's 3rd place for him. He's made up some good time on that lap, 0.3 of a second down on Bulliga. Relegates Razgatlioglu to the 2nd row of the grid. Vierge crosses the line in P7. Remy Gardner coming through will displace him. He's up into 6th place. 2 minutes to go in Superpole. Bulliga leads and is on a faster lap still, ahead of Alex Lowes in 2nd, Sam Lowes in 3rd, and Toprak Razgatlioglu, who's made up 0.2 of a second in the 2nd sector of his 2nd flying lap in this final stint.
And Toprak had to make up that time because Buliga's a lot faster in the 1st sector than everyone else, a couple of tenths of a second faster than Toprak on this lap.
And watch out for Andrea Iannone as well, as we see Alvaro Bautista coming through the final sector. Where does Bautista land? It's only 13th place. This is not going at all as planned for Alvaro Bautista, but it is going exactly as per the script for Toprak Razgatlioglu. He makes his way through the final 2 turns. He's 0.4 of a second up after 3 completed sectors, and it's a 1 minute 35 flat. Nicolo Bulliga crosses the line behind him on track, only 0.1 of a second down, and another great showdown between our 2 title contenders. Looks like it might well end with Razgatlioglu on top with a 1 minute 35.018, 0.1 of a second ahead of Nicolo Bulliga. Alex Lowes 3rd, 0.4 of a second down. Andrea Iannone moves himself up onto the 2nd row of the grid in 4th. Sam Lowes with a chance to improve. He's currently in 6th place, 0.1 of a second down on top spot after 3 completed sectors, but that's a chance to move himself up onto the front row of the grid here. Sam Lowes, who is the only man really who's been able to go toe-to-toe consistently with Razgatlioglu and Bulliga, and he has now joined them on the front row of the grid. With less than a minute remaining, he moves into 3rd.
Yeah, some really good performances at the end of this session. The likes of Jari Montella has put himself up there in the 2nd row with a great effort from him on the Barney bike. We saw Sam come through that final sector, and again, you're having to really muscle yourself over those curves. He's got that bike working quite well in that final sector. Toprak still a little bit slower than Bulliga in the final sector, but he's got the pace everywhere else. He's up by another 1/10 of a second halfway around this lap, trying to get down to be the first rider into the 34s ever here at Magny.
Absolutely incredible from Toprak Razgatlioglu. He has certainly been our top qualifier this season. He's the leader of the Superpole award and hasn't qualified off the front row this season, either in Superpole or the Superpole race. 10 consecutive front row starts to his name. The checkered flag falls in Superpole. Razgatlioglu with a chance to become the first rider into the 1 minute 34s on a superbike here in Manicourt, and he's done so. A brilliant final sector, and it's a 1 minute 34.930, and Razgatlioglu takes pole position by a 2/10 of a second margin ahead of title rival Nicolo Bulliger.
Toprak just laying it down there. We're half a second faster than we ever saw in a Superpole session. Shows just how impressive the packages are for these riders. Now, obviously, last year in wet conditions meant we didn't get something reflective in that session, but 34.9 from Toprak. We knew it was going to be fast. Bulliger was underneath lap record pace in yesterday's sessions, but to see the top 4 riders under what had been the lap record coming into this weekend, that's impressive.
Lots to unpick in that session in the end, as we see Sam Lowes, who's finished it in 3rd position. I don't think there's any great surprise about your top 3, because Razgatlioglu's been your regular pole man of late. That'll be 3 in a row for him. Nicolo Bulliger is very rarely off the front row. Hungarian round last time out was the only exception this season. And Sam Lowes has been really consistent in terms of his Superpole performances as well. Pole sitter, of course, at the Dutch round, beat Nicolo Bulliger at the Italian round, 2nd on the grid again last time out in Hungary. So for Sam Lowes, that's 4 front row starts in the last 7 rounds, and once again proving his consistency in 2025.
Yeah, we've seen it time and again from Sam, and he's done his long run pace as well during free practice, so he'll feel pretty confident going into the race that he's going to be able to fight for the podium. And when you speak to him, that's what he's talking about. He wants to be able to fight for podiums. He wants to challenge for a race win between now and the end of the season. It's going to be tough to do it here at Magny, but you look at his past form at places like Jerez or Aragon in his Grand Prix career, and you know he's going to be there or thereabouts. But he keeps knocking on the door, and another front row start. But Toprak's performance in this session, that's once again just that big exclamation mark on what he's able to do in a Superpole session.
And it's a statement performance, not least because Toprak's first stint didn't go to plan. You know, when he was building up for that final stint, he was down in 4th place, actually.
Yeah, well, he had made that mistake on his first stint. We had the yellow flag, so a little bit of circumstances for him. But after he has to bail on the first lap when Bulliger and Ian One come out of the pits in front of him, he's still able to collect himself, give himself the chance to be able to go out there and set his fast times. What's interesting in a session like this is to see what the other riders are able to do and when they set their lap times. You can see Michael van der Mark there just coming into the pits alongside Toprak. Because they were out together, Van der Mark set his time as one of the first riders to set a lap time during the session, and that was good enough for him to be able to put himself on the 3rd row of the grid. That's important for him and for BMW as well, to give themselves the chance of a decent result this weekend. But it also shows you that the BMW package is working well.
Yeah, first top 10 Superpole results since the Italian round in May for Michael van der Mark. Best result since P7 on the grid in Portimao. He's never been the best of qualifiers, but he does love the Circuit de Nevers.
Yeah, and obviously where he had a race win last year in the wet conditions as well. But interesting to see Jari Montella ahead of Danilo Petrucci on the grid. We've seen Montella have some of those good performances through the course of the season. He finds himself down the order in terms of championship points for the year, but his good weekends have been really good. You think of Phillip Island, think of Portimao, and he gives himself a chance here this weekend.
Yes, and an impressive result, because he didn't set a time in the first stint but manages to find his way into 6th. By contrast, Alvaro Bautista, who didn't set a time in the first stint, could only finish in P14. It's more of the same for Bautista, particularly here in Manicourt. As I said, hasn't had the best of Superpole results generally here.
Yeah, and for Bautista, he's on the 5th row of the grid. He was 14th fastest in the free practice sessions combined as well, and he was only a few tenths of a second faster in this Superpole session than he's gone all weekend. A lot of other riders have made a big jump forward when they put the Q tyre in, but for Bautista, unfortunately, he's got his work cut out for himself once again, and it is the Superpole performances that consistently make it difficult for Bautista. He's able to recover during the course of the race 1 to get himself back into those top 5 positions. Then in the Superpole race, he gives himself a better grid position for race 2, but he just gives himself too much work to do over this 15-minute session.
Quick word for Andrea Iannone. He was only 14th on the grid here last season in Magny-Cours. He's 5th place, and that has come from absolutely nowhere based on his free practice times.
Yeah, and for Iannone, he had a lot of problems yesterday, lost a lot of running, trying to make changes to the bike, trying to find the right feeling, and they've been able to find it now, and that's really good for Iannone and also for the Go 11 team. But once again, we're able to get that good indication of just how strong the Ducati package is overall. Obviously, Toprak takes the pole, but you've got Bulega, Sam Lowes, Iannone, Montella and Petrucci up there in the top 7 as well.
Yes, and that means that it's even more to the credit of Alex Lowes, for example, to put the Bimotor up there into P4. Important result for Lowes too, because remember, he qualified down in P12 at the Hungarian round last time out, bringing an end to his run of 3 consecutive top 5 Superpole results. He's back up in the top 5 today. It's P4 for Alex Lowes.
Yeah, and important for Lowes to be able to back up what we saw this morning from him as well in the final practice session. And again, for Bimota, they're able to see that impressive performance, but 2 Bimotas up inside the top 10. Bassani on the 4th row of the grid in 10th spot. That's a good effort from Axel as well. Superpole's never been his forte, but that shows that the Bimota's working well.
Yes, and the potential is there for more. We've seen that from Alex Lowes in the 3 most recent rounds, to a lesser extent in Balaton Park, but it was always going to be tough there. A track where it was going to be difficult to make those overtaking manoeuvres, and where Lowes qualified down in P12. But when you think about Most qualifies 4th, comes away with 4th in race 1. Misano qualifies 5th, comes away with 4th in race 1 and a podium in the Superpole race. And then Donington Park, where he qualified 3rd and led a couple of laps. The potential is there for Alex Lowes to be in contention. Not quite a top 3 spot for him in Superpole this morning. Your lead trio: Toprak Razgatlioglu, Nicolo Bulega and Sam Lowes.
Sam Lowes, strong form all the way through free practice yesterday, and a front row today. You must be elated.
Yeah, no, really happy. The pace is not too bad. It was nice to do that lap. I struggled on the first tyre, so it was nice to do such a strong lap time. The 2 guys in front are very fast. Toprak also with the rhythm is incredible. So we'll see for the race, but we have good pace on used tyres also. So get a good start, make a nice rhythm, and we'll see at the end.
Thanks, Sam. Best of luck for the race.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah, reality is these are no longer surprise results, are they? It's back-to-back front row starts for Sam. It's 4 front row starts in all. Obviously, he was our pole sitter in Assen, 2nd on the grid in Cremona, 2nd on the grid in Hungary, and 3rd here today. So there's no doubting about his performances in these Superpole sessions.
We've been able to see once again this year that that single lap pace is good. That wasn't a problem for him last year, whenever the rest of the season was a bit more of a challenge in the races. But in terms of that 1 lap pace, that was always his forte in Moto 2. He's been able to show once again that he can do that on a superbike, and this season's been really strong over the course of those Superpole sessions, and these have been the top 3 riders to beat in single lap pace this season.
2nd place today for Nicolo Bulega. It is his 8th front row start in 9 rounds this season.
Nicolo Bulega, lap record pace yesterday. Another strong performance here in Superpole to line up on the front row.
Yeah, not bad. We improved a little bit from yesterday, so we have to try to improve again for race 1, and then we will see.
Thanks, Nicolo. Well done.
Thank you.
Yeah, sounds a little bit flat, Nicolo Bulega there. You must sense to an extent that after his excellent performance in FP2 yesterday afternoon, he was fancying his chances of taking a pole away from Toprak Razgatlioglu, bringing them level on 4 apiece for this season, but instead it's Toprak with another notch on his belt.
Yeah, we said at the time that a lot of it comes down to when riders put in their new tyres, and we weren't sure if Toprak was going to try and do a single fast lap at the end of yesterday's session. He was focusing on his race pace. He didn't try and put in a new tyre until this morning, and now for Toprak, he's been able just to reassert himself and show the confidence that we always knew that he'd have.
It is an 11th consecutive front row start for Toprak Razgatlioglu, his 47th in all in his career, and pole position number 23. Razgatlioglu has done 3 poles in a row in 2025.
Toprak Razgatlioglu, you looked a bit frustrated midway through that Superpole session, but it all came right in the end, your first Superpole at Magny-Cours.
Yeah, for me it's a good weekend because last year I did crash here. I'm not continue to the weekend, but I'm really happy. This is the teamwork, you know. We are improve the bike every race weekend, and I did again the pole position in the Magny-Cours. I'm just waiting the race because the race for me is very important. I have the target this weekend. We will see the race. Thank you very much for everyone.
Thanks, Toprak.
Yes, as I said at the top of the programme, Toprak Razgatlioglu has not been a pole sitter here at the French round previously. He did manage to tie the fastest lap time with Jonathan Ray a few years ago, but now he's got it outright, the margin 0.2 of a second today over Nicolo Bulliger.
Yeah, and for Toprak, obviously whenever we get underway for the racing this afternoon, he'll start as your clear favourite. We know how good he is around this place, but we also know that to have any chance to be able to upset him, you have to find a way to get in front of him. Magny-Cours sets up for that down in towards turn 5 on lap 1, so we'll see if anyone's able to get the knives out and try and take the fight to him, but it's going to be a tough task. Interesting that he mentioned the crash here a year ago, because you rather felt that once he'd done, you know, installation lap and a hot lap yesterday, and you know, his second flying lap was immediately fastest in FP1, that would rather be out of the mind. But there is an element of coming back to get some measure of revenge on this circuit this weekend. It's interesting because I went down to BMW last night just to be able to talk to the team about what we saw from Toprak yesterday with his long run pace, and they said that they could see on the data all the way through the day he's still that little bit hesitant through that section of the track, a little bit more patient than he was in the past. Not so much that he's trying to push right on to what he had done there in the past, but about trying to just be aware that the lap time isn't made in turn 14, it's made everywhere, and Toprak just being a little bit different in his approach into that section than he was last year. Understandable after the crash, but also important just to show that he's learned from the crash that you don't need to push in certain areas of the track to that maximum. Sometimes there's a different way to set it. And perhaps that he's a human after all. Toprak Razgatlioglu, Nicolo Bulliger and Sam Lowe's your top trio, and they will lead away the grid for race 1 this afternoon and tomorrow's Tissot Superpole race. For Sam Lowe's, it's his 4th front row start of this 2025 campaign. 8th front row in 9 rounds for Nicolo Bulliger, and 17 overall, including last year as well. And for Toprak Razgatlioglu, it's his 5th pole of 2025, 9 consecutive front row starts this season, plus the last 2 rounds of last year for 11 in a row, and his 23rd career pole. Look at the rest of the order. Your top bemotor is Alex Lowe's in P4, but a good session for Axel Bassani as well in P10. Only 2 of the top 7 positions in Superpole are not held by Ducatis. And yet, Alvaro Bautista has qualified all the way down in 14th place, leaving him with a lot of work to do yet again on Saturday afternoon. A couple of surprises inside the top 10 places. Perhaps Jari Montella doing a good job in 6th. Andrea Iannone pulls a lap time out of nowhere for a place on the 2nd row of the grid, and Michael van der Mark with his best Superpole result since the 2nd round of this season. Tissot Superpole Award and another 12 points for Toprak Razgatlioglu ahead of Nicolo Bulliger and Sam Lowe's. Those positions well and truly entrenched by this stage. So it's our regular schedule on Saturday here in Magny-Cours, and we'll be back in 2 hours' time, building up to race 1 of the 2025 French round. Do join us then.